Welcome to TakeaSide, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. Huge shout out to last week's winner Bernard for once again taking home the crown atop Sided's leaderboard. Be sure to get on Sided.co and put up your own arguments for your chance to climb that leaderboard and win a $25 Amazon gift card. We've got a great show for you today. Starting us off, we're talking Big Ten football. While the Ohio State Buckeyes are heavily favored to take home the Big Ten East crown, the Big Ten West seems to be wide open. The Wisconsin Badgers are currently the only ranked team in the Big Ten West at number 9 in the latest AP poll. However, Northwestern and Purdue both looked impressive in their Big Ten debuts, while Iowa and Minnesota are expected to be in contention despite their early 0-1 records. I'm joined by Max McElroy and Blake Sevenbergen to hear who they think will win the Big Ten West.
Well, I think that honestly, this is Minnesota, the Gophers. I think this is their division to lose, if I'm being honest. Last year was kind of like the miracle season where they kind of rebuilt everything, and just looking at their team, they only lost 2 starters on offense, and they return a 1,000-yard rusher, and they return obviously Rashad Bateman, who will be a first-round draft pick, and then they return their quarterback, who also had a great year in Tanner Morgan, and so I think really just like the consistency that they had on offense will be able to they'll be able to produce just like they did last year, and I think that can honestly win in the Big Ten West.
See, my problem with Minnesota this year is they played the underdog role all of last season. They started the season 9-0 until they ran into a tough Iowa team. And my problem with them is this year they're expected to win, and I don't think they might have that chip on their shoulder that they had last year, which is why I think the Wisconsin Badgers are the team that's going to take the division. While Graham Mertz played out of his mind in the first game, only 1 incompletion, 5 touchdown passes, strong run game, insane defense, 45-7 win against Illinois. Mertz is out because of COVID protocols now, but I don't think that's going to matter for a well-coached Wisconsin team with a tough defense and a good run game.
Yeah, I'm curious how well they'll be able to kind of dish it out to everyone with the different quarterback. Obviously, they had Jack Cohen was a starter before the season started, and then he got hurt, and then Graham Mertz came in, and everyone was like, Graham Mertz is our guy, and then now he's out for 3 weeks due to COVID. So I don't know how well those 3 weeks are going to go for Wisconsin. You practice so much with one quarterback, and then you flip to another one, and now you're going to a third quarterback within a period of 4 weeks. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how well that'll translate. I think last year with Jonathan Taylor on their team, they were able to really move the ball downfield, and I don't know how well the running backs that they kind of rotate in, how well they'll be able to mimic that, because he was averaging like 200 yards a game. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how well that'll translate with different running backs, where just the consistency on Minnesota's offense I think will be great. And also, let's talk about P.J. Fleck for a second. P.J. Fleck, absolute players coach. Everyone loves him, changed the culture there, and he really, I think, elevates Minnesota. I think last year was kind of his year to be like, I mean business here, and then I think he got out-coached by some of the smarter coaches, but I think this year he will learn, he will grow, as you need to in the Big Ten with how competitive it is, and I think he's going to rise above. I know they lost to Michigan. The good thing about that is that they're in the Big Ten East, so that hopefully won't matter for Minnesota by the end of it. But I think when all is said and done, I think the head-to-head matchup between Wisconsin and Minnesota is going to be the most important one for the Big Ten West.
And while we're at it, let's talk about the team that did beat Minnesota last year. They gave them their first loss, the Iowa Hawkeyes. They struggled real bad against Purdue last week, but they're returning Amir Smith-Marset, guys like Tyler Goodson, center Tyler Linderbaum is an animal. And they're a well-coached football team. They're proven. And let me tell you, November night games in Kinnick Stadium, it's a tough place for teams. They've knocked off Michigan, Ohio State, and last year Minnesota at home in November. And that's why I think with the season starting later, they're just going to be an even tougher team to play against.
Yeah, we'll have to see. There might even be another team that rises up for the Big Ten West that we wouldn't even see coming.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Purdue got themselves in the conversation with how they looked last week, too.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to talk about NFL football.
We're 7 weeks into the NFL season, and there isn't a division in football worse than the NFC East. After an embarrassing 25-3 loss to the Washington football team on Sunday, the Cowboys sit at third in the division behind only the lowly New York Giants. Since losing quarterback Dak Prescott to a season-ending ankle injury in Week 5, the Cowboys have gone 0-2, being outscored by a combined 63-13. With the Cowboys' struggles, many are calling for first-year head coach Mike McCarthy to be fired. For our second debate of the day, I'm joined by Marina Saver and Maya Peterson to debate whether or not Mike McCarthy will last in Dallas.
I think Mike McCarthy absolutely is in jeopardy of losing his job, especially with the way that things are going right now. The NFC East is a blessing for the Cowboys because they have the opportunity, and Mike McCarthy has the opportunity to get a playoff team that would not contend in any other division, and he can't do it. And I think the biggest thing here is that I know that there are excuses. I know their offensive line has been decimated. I know Dak is gone. I know their defensive coordinator's scheme is like not getting through to the players, or they don't, whatever it is. I don't know. It's abysmal. I get it. But at the end of the day, they are lacking in leadership right now, and Mike McCarthy is not picking it up. And the biggest thing here is that Mike McCarthy was brought in to really they got rid of Jason Garrett. He'd been there 9 years, and they brought in Mike McCarthy to really pick things up. The Cowboys were stuck being good enough, and they didn't have the playoff, gravitas, if you will, to really get anything done to live up to their name. And they brought in Mike McCarthy to get them over that hump, and they're still stuck. They're worse than stuck. They don't even want to be there. And you watch these players take the field, and there's no energy. And you look at a team like Miami, for example, not a good football team by any means, but they get a little bit better every week. You see little glimpses every single week. They are buying into the coaching system. They're buying into where the progression of that team can be. And the Cowboys players just aren't doing it. And I think that is going to come down to Mike McCarthy not being prepared as a coach, not motivating these players the way that he needs to. And I think he's absolutely going to be out of a job come the end of the season.
See, now, I'm from Dallas.
Right.
So I've heard all the Jason Garrett talks, all the Jerry Jones talk, even the Dak talk last year. Mm-hmm. And you said the biggest point is leadership. They're lacking leadership. For me, I don't think Mike McCarthy is the biggest issue with leadership. The Cowboys are struggling defensively, like you said. There needs to be a change in the defensive coordinator. On the offensive side, they're terrible. For the simple fact that we have amazing assets. You have Zeke, you have CeeDee Lamb, who's one of the top recruits we've gotten, and then you have Amari Cooper. We trade, we get great players, we just don't know how to use them effectively. Does that mean it's Mike McCarthy's fault? Not exactly. They're losing because Zeke, for one, can't hold the ball the whole entire game. He's fumbling. He's doing all these terrible things. Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are not getting the ball. Where you could say, well, it's because of the game plan. Yes, we are stuck in this running game, and we can't get out into the passing game. But also, let's look at Jason Garrett, because you have to use him. He's been there for 9 years. His first season, he started a little late, but he went 5-2. Right now, McCarthy is at 2-5, a quick little switch, but he has the potential to win at least 2 games. He's a new coach for the Cowboys. He doesn't know where the game plan is going. So I say give him 1 year, figure it out. He's still going to be a little slow next year because he's not going to have Dak, and that's another issue as well. You can't expect these quarterbacks to come in who have never played a game because Dak has been injured or Dak has just been able to play for 2 years straight. They got lucky with Dak when Tony Romo got hurt and he was able to get in because that's the mindset he had, okay, let me take this opportunity. Andy Dalton, terrible in general. He wouldn't be a good fit for any team right now. So I think it's more about the assets and using the assets to their full potential.
Yeah, I agree. I do think they still have a lot of offensive weapons. You talk about Cooper. I think Michael Gallup deserves a mention because he's a great second, third receiver. CeeDee Lamb, of course, and Ezekiel Elliott, yeah, he's regressing right in front of us right now, but he's still a traditionally great running back. There's just, again, I think it goes back to there is no drive for them to want to win. And even, again, the NFC East is a blessing for them because they have an opportunity to contend this year where they would never be able to. You're going to tell me that even with the offensive weapons that Dallas still has left and a backup quarterback who has a winning record as a starter in the NFL, yeah, he was faded. Yeah, that's why the Bengals made the switch to inevitably Joe Burrow. But there's no reason that the Dallas Cowboys, even with what they have left, are not competing with Washington, Philadelphia, New York. They should be running those guys over. And I think it comes down to, I think it was Jane Slater is her name, who published a report with, she's a longtime NFL reporter covering the Cowboys, where a bunch of Cowboys players anonymously came forward and said their coaches aren't teaching, they don't want to play for them, they don't fit there, and it just, they're not learning anything, and it's not working, it's not clicking with them. And I think, yes, Mike McCarthy is a tenured coach. Yes, he has a Super Bowl ring 10 years ago, but still, that is, the ring's the thing kind of with him. So I think Mike McCarthy I honestly don't think he was a great hire for them in the first place. I was really shocked that they didn't go with someone younger, someone like super offensive minded, maybe even someone like Lincoln Riley out of Oklahoma. I'm not saying Lincoln Riley himself, but someone who's young like that, kind of to do the same thing that Cliff Kingsbury did going into Arizona, where he's young, he's offensive minded, he's a big name in college, and he's completely changed the culture down in Arizona. And I think that's something that the Cowboys would have benefited from, bringing in someone like that. Mike Nolan's going to be gone too. If it's not Mike McCarthy, it's going to be Mike Nolan, because I don't know if his schemes are rocket science or what it is, but they just do not get it. They're horrible on defense. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, this all comes down to the coaching. And if Mike McCarthy's system is not clicking with the Cowboys, it doesn't matter what his resume looks like, because they don't want to play for him. They get on the field and they just let themselves lose. There is no fire, there's no drive there, and I think that's going to come down to McCarthy at the end of the day and at the end of the season. I think McCarthy is in jeopardy right now, and I really would not be surprised to see him out of a job come, the end of regular season.
See, and I see that, but like you said, it comes down to all the coaches. I don't think one coach, as Mike McCarthy, can affect the whole entire team, the defense not wanting to get out there and play. Or the offense, you have a good point that, like, of course, if my coach isn't pushing me to do better or be better, I'm not going to want to be better. However, Mike McCarthy needs the time to build a good coaching staff around him, and hopefully that will play into the players. So that's offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators, to give them that extra push that they need.
Yeah, I think especially if the Cowboys are unable to win the NFC East, like if the team that wins the NFC East gets like 6 wins on the season and it's not the Cowboys, that's even worse for McCarthy.
Yes.
So really, I think how it's going to go the rest of the season and how the Cowboys play, let's see if they can surpass the Eagles, who seem to be picking up a little bit of steam.
Definitely.
I think depending on how the NFC East ends and how the season ends, that is McCarthy's fate in the air.
Yes, they have. Like I said, I think I'm giving the Cowboys 2 more games to win, and that's against the New York Giants and maybe the Bengals, and even that is terrible to say.
Yeah, but
that could be 2 wins.
But it'll be interesting to see for sure, and I think regardless of what happens, it'll be a great, fun thing to watch, see what happens to Mike McCarthy's career. But we're going to throw it over to a commercial. Thanks for sticking with us.
Diversity. What is diversity? It can be an umbrella term for a variety of things, ranging from diversity among different people, places, cultures, and ideas, to the way people express themselves and the way they interact with the world. In today's world, people interact with one another and share their thoughts through social media. Let's take Twitter, for example. How are people of different backgrounds, ethnicities, and sexual orientations with different political beliefs, interests, and job titles using this platform differently? Currently, celebrities are interacting with their fans on Twitter by speaking their minds, sharing their beliefs, and supporting social issues. Professional sports figures and organizations in the United States are using Twitter to support social causes and bring attention to current social matters, such as encouraging their fans to vote. Users are voicing their opinions about current issues surrounding racial inequalities, social injustice, and police brutality in the United States. There's diversity in the way people are discussing the upcoming presidential election, especially regarding their opinions of each candidate. Different news outlets are not only highlighting stories in the US, but are talking about important stories from around the world. But many Twitter users don't post about controversial matters or social issues at all. Rather, they use their platform to create memes and post funny content for entertainment. While many topics going around this app involve social issues and political opinions, Twitter creates a space where people can pull together collections of diverse thoughts, comments, opinions, goals, and even a little humor too. So how can we use this platform to express our differences? More importantly, how can we use it to learn from each other's differences today?
Welcome back. Last week, the Kappa Alpha Theta chapter at KU made national headlines when the sorority placed a member, Catherine Lauer, on probation for retweeting a post created by a conservative political pundit, Candace Owens. Owens' post condemns the Black Lives Matter movement as being racist. Lauer says there's nothing in the sorority's bylaws that prohibits her from retweeting political commentary. I'm joined by Emma House and Jerome Sweeney to debate whether or not a Greek organization has the right to suspend members for expressing their political beliefs on social media.
All right, well, I think it's kind of a big debate that's going around right now, especially just in the political climate of our country and everything.
Right.
So what are your thoughts? Do you think that any Greek organization has the right to kind of suspend their members or put them on probation for expressing political views?
Right. So, I mean, Greek organizations are very complex. There's a lot of, behind the door stuff that, not the public eye knows. So, I mean, basically, most Greek organizations have some sort of a standards board to a committee of people that, act as sort of a judicial board for members in the organization. And they take into consideration, modern events like, currently the Black Lives Matter movement has been sweeping the nation, and frankly, it's a huge deal. And the fact that her sorority doesn't have social media as a disciplinary action in their bylaws is kind of tough in a modern situation with a lot of the heat coming from social media and news coming from social media, and that's where most people get their news from. So I think it's time to start making changes and implementing social media discipline.
I'm going to go ahead and disagree with that. I don't think that Greek organizations as a whole, I mean, yes, I understand that they are a private organization, they have their own laws and everything, and I think it's kind of tricky in the sense that it's like, how far is too far? I think specifically, unless someone is directly affiliating with the sorority or fraternity or anything where, whether they're wearing Greek letters or they're in the house or, doing something that's directly affiliated with the organization, I think then the organization has a right to kind of monitor what's being said, and it's their image. They can say, hey, we don't want this coming up in our sorority. But I think if someone is just simply a member of the sorority or fraternity, and they're not posting anything that's directly affiliated with it, and they're just posting their own thoughts, I don't think they should have to face retribution for that.
Well, so in her previous post on her page, she is affiliating herself with the sorority, and that is still on her page while she was posting these anti-BLM posts. So is that affiliating yourself if you're not posting directly about your sorority, or even while you have photos of yourself in front of your sorority house and other members of the sorority?
I think it's fine for her to affiliate with stuff in like I did see her Instagram. She does have bid day stuff on there, and she does have, all this stuff, and I think that's fine. But I think it's more of in the sense of as long as she's not directly affiliating and captioning it with these with these racist things or anything like that. It's more of like if she posted a picture of her wearing her sorority letters and then had a caption that was hate speech, then I think that's a problem. But if she's just posting a picture of herself and there's no direct affiliation with the sorority or anything like that, then I think she shouldn't face retribution for it.
Right. So back to that. So she actually went to Fox News, and then she brought Kappa Alpha Theta into the national spotlight for the second time this semester. Earlier this semester, they were on Fox News for coronavirus, being an outbreak for that. So I think it's more about bad publicity being brought onto the House than anything. And the sorority would like to obviously not be viewed in the negative light like most Greek organizations are. I assume they don't want the stigma that most Greek houses face when they come into the news. So I think it's a bigger deal than people are realizing, and I would not be surprised in the slightest if more Greek organizations and other organizations around the country and start to implement anti-racism and other social media restrictions on employees and students.
In terms of if she should be suspended or not, I don't think that she should be suspended from the sorority. I think, it's tricky because it's kind of where do we draw the line of where organizations and private organizations maintain their image but then also suppress rights of people. And so do I think she should be suspended? No. Do I think that she has to face the consequences of what she's posted and how people might perceive her, especially within her sorority? Absolutely. And I think anybody who posts anything on social media has to deal with those consequences. But I don't think that a Greek organization has the right to tell somebody what their political standpoint should be in order for them to be considered part of the sisterhood or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that having that monitor is kind of unconstitutional, in my opinion. I mean, the most basic argument is that we have the First Amendment, which protects our freedom of speech. And I think that right now they're trying to suppress her freedom of speech.
Right. Well, the way you sign a contract to join a Greek organization, and by signing those contracts, again, I'm not sure what exactly their contract says, but I mean, you have to follow specific rules, and that just means that you have to abide by them, and if you don't abide by them, they have the right to prosecute you in the proper manner.
I agree with that, but she also said it wasn't in the bylaws, and I think if they are going to reprimand her for this kind of stuff, then they need to put a slap on the wrist to the other girls that say things on the other side if they're gonna do that. So I don't know, it's kind of a tricky subject for a lot of things, but I don't think she should be suspended at all.
Right. Well, I mean, it'll be very interesting to see whether or not more Greek organizations start to implement, disciplinary actions for social medias and whatnot. All right. Well, we're going to throw it back over to Jacob.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. As always, be sure to get on sided.co and put up your own arguments. For all of us here at TakeaSide, I'm Jacob Polachek, and we'll see you next week.